All right, hello everybody. Today I have the privilege of talking with Jack Stine, who is a good friend of mine that I met 3 weeks ago. Jack is he's a local dweller. He goes to Milford High School. He has a Christian clothing brand called Risen Co., and he has been working to advance Christian Bible studies in Milford High School in the mornings. So I'm going to hand it off to Jack, who's just going to tell you a little bit about himself, and then we'll talk about his recent mission trip.
For sure, yeah. So I've, what should I go over?
Whatever you want to go over. Lean into the mic a bit.
Okay, like this.
So just tell me about the Bible study you started in Milford real quickly.
Yeah, for sure. So we started a couple years back, a little Bible study at Milford, and it was just really anyone who wanted to come. We had nothing like it before, and so we just really wanted to show Christ to other people, and it honestly started off really great. We started off with like 5 or 6 kids right off the bat, and now it's grown to like 27, so it's really cool to see Christ growing through Milford High. And then we also do a thing called FCA, thanks to Scott Armstrong. And I'm one of the huddle leaders there, and it's about 12, 15 kids who meet, and it's just for Christian athletes, so it's cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to have you on. So today we'll start talking about your recent mission trip, but the real meat of the podcast is we wanted to basically dissect your last 3 years of your life and your walk with God, and kind of analyze small decisions you've made that have led to bigger decisions that affected your life and your walk with God. And that's the main purpose of why we're here today. But we can start with Detroit. So tell me about, first of all, what was the mission trip you did? Where was it? What were you doing? And how was it?
Yeah, man, it was awesome. We ended up from 707's got this just mission trip that goes to Detroit every year during the summer, and it's with Novi, Milford, Canton, and West Bloomfield. And we just go out into the community of Detroit. We work with CDC, which is Christian Detroit. I think it's, I don't know what
Center
the other
something
something like that. And they do a VBS with them, and we were also helping them build houses and work on demolition and stuff like that. And then as well with that, we worked with it's street crew is really what it is, and we go through the community and we just bless people around there. So we'll knock on doors in certain streets and just like see if they need anything, and we'll do, whether it comes to yard work because they can't do it and function, or if it's just like they need a prayer as they're going out into the world. So it's really cool thing.
Give me, what was the best opportunity you had to talk to someone about God or pray over them?
Best opportunity we had, there was this one lady who was she just seemed really distraught, and she was going to work, and we prayed over her. We're like, God, comfort this lady. I don't remember what her name was, and after the prayer, after we prayed for her, she just felt so relieved, and she's like, thank you, I really needed that. I can tell you're God's angels. And we felt so much better, just to see a God's comfort over her. And she got in the car and ended up leaving, but it was really cool to see.
Awesome. That's great. So how long was that?
For the mission trip, yeah. It was a whole week long.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's a grind, man.
It is a lot of sleep deprived, but hey, God gave me the energy and all of us to do great work down there, so it was really cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good job working. All right, so if we're talking about, we'll move on to your high school story. Let's pick a start point and an end point, and we'll go work with the middle. So maybe you decide where you want to start, and then where do you want to end?
Yeah, let's start probably freshman year for sure.
Okay.
And then we can end probably around now, honestly.
All right.
Like where I'm at.
Just current time.
So
why do you pick freshman year?
Oh, freshman year, it's like a big phase for everyone. Everyone's trying to fit in, Everyone is just looking for, whether it's popularity or some spot where they can belong. because everyone's going through a different phase in life, and that's when high school comes together and melts them. So that was a big start for me, like where my priorities were set.
So is that right when you moved?
No, I moved 6th grade year. So
Okay.
I
Where
came
do
in
you live
6th grade.
before?
I lived in Massachusetts, Boston. So yeah.
Awesome.
So I kind of had like a friend group in about from 6th grade to 8th grade, and then we kind of went our own ways as we went into high school. So it was like a big starting point again for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just start. Summer freshman year.
Yeah, summer freshman year. So coming into high school, we had football, and that's where like I was like, these are my guys, and I'll start from there because we have connections through football, and we had gone through all that. And so going into high school, I had known those guys, and that's who I wanted to be, and that's like where I wanted to start off, So going into freshman year, nothing crazy, just hanging out with those guys, and they became like my friend group. And I went to church, but I also didn't prioritize that as much. And same with 707, I didn't seek God as my priority as much, and I leaned that towards my popularity and what I wanted to be as high school went on, and I looked up to guys I wanted to be like, and that took me away from my faith a little bit. And so then that's kind of like where I started off freshman year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said that kind of took your focus off from God, and you kind of centered it more towards popularity. Mm-hmm. Was there any, I would ask, events that spurred that? Because sometimes maybe you'll want to be popular. Yeah. You're a pretty popular guy.
Yeah.
You're great at talking to people. But if you weren't successful in that, you probably wouldn't pursue that. So was there any, one moment you could just think your freshman year, okay, maybe I can be popular?
Yeah, I'd say, middle school years, I had a rough time with that, where I felt like I was overlooked and stuff like that. Okay. And so I remember, coming in to freshman year and being like, I can change who I want to be.
Yeah. And
seeing that power of I can take charge, I threw away everything and put everything on myself and became greedy and selfish, and that made me, I feel like middle of the year I'd be yeah, I can be that guy and I want to be that guy. And that's that was my turning point mentally, where I realized I have power. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
so it's your choice.
It's my choice. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so freshman year, was that the only thing you struggle with, just popularity? Or I guess there's a lot of things that come with that, right? Parties.
Yeah, parties. I feel like the parties didn't come later on. Sophomore year was mainly, that's when things hit. That's when things got real. I'd say, yeah, going into sophomore year, it was kind of the same, me and these buddies just hung out and going into football, and then the alcohol started coming in. Okay. And I thought, man, I went to a couple of my friends' house, they had it out. I just kind of thought nothing of it, and that's when I went wrong, Yeah. And I thought it'd be man, they just get over it, it's a phase. But that just started growing and growing. And luckily, I didn't do any of it, thank goodness. Because I had struggled with alcoholics in my family in the past, and so that's what really saved me. And looking back on it now, it's God that protected me. Mm-hmm. But it just they wanted something else to have fun, and that was alcohol, and that's what it turned to, and that's when things started to shift. Okay. Yeah.
So when this was all happening, were you still connected with God, at least to a small degree?
Yes.
So you kind of going to church. You were still were you doing devotions at this point?
Yeah, I would say it. We do family devotions and stuff.
So I'm just trying to figure out, how far away were you from God? Because I know I've been in parts of my life where I'm not being a Christian, but I am. Mm-hmm. I'm not acting like it. or I am, but people around me aren't, and I just feel guilty all the time being around that.
Yeah.
So how were you feeling then?
It was more of like I would go through routine motions, you know? And I felt like I'd feel like really influenced by God when I was at church, but then I would like put up a mask almost.
Yeah.
And I would leave it behind. And yeah, that took a toll. Like I wasn't pursuing my faith actively.
That's a hard thing, I think, in your freshman and sophomore year, is not just being a Christian in church. Because that's when you're, I would say, most self-conscious of what people think about you. And then leaving church and actually living it out is a hard part. Because I would say, when I was a freshman and sophomore, I don't know if you had the same thoughts, let me know. But I would, in church, know I'm doing something wrong and know my friends are. And I would just also have the same thought simultaneously in church, well, I can't do anything about it. Like, I'm not going to, like, be the guy that's like, okay, everybody stop.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I did feel like that for sure. For sure. Like, it's hard. You don't want to be that person who, like, gets real with people, honestly, like, and, like, brings up faith. But I should have, looking back, you know. And that's where I just wasn't strong enough in my faith.
And that's tough because no one that age wants to hear you either. They're not going to listen to you.
Exactly. They want to do what they think is fun and what makes them happy, you know.
And that's where keeping your circle tight is a huge thing.
It is.
You just can't be around people that are going to sin and going to drag you into it. You can be, as like you're reaching out to them. Like that's you should be, but you can't be constantly hanging out with them to be seeking your fun. Your fun has to be with people that are also seeking the Lord while seeking the fun.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and that's kind of where like here I'll read a verse that this is actually our Detroit verse that we did, but this is so real to like what it's all about, you know, and like the things that I was struggling with. So here, let me find it. Shoot, maybe this isn't it.
Here you go.
It's Galatians 5. I was looking at the
Bible drill.
I know.
Let's see how much.
Good job. All right, here it is.
All right. So what is this verse pertaining to you? So what do you correlate this to?
So like this is like for me when I realized like I can't be doing this and I can't like it says gratify your desires with the flesh. I have to walk with the Spirit. And so like here I'll read it out. It'll make a little more sense.
Read to the mic.
What?
Read into the mic.
Okay, here you go. For you and my brothers and sisters were called to be free, but do not use your freedom and opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another. For the whole law is fulfilled by this word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite and devour one another, watch out, for you will be consumed by one another. But I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the desires of the flesh are against the Spirit, and the desires of the Spirit are against the flesh. And those are always opposed to each other, to keep you from doing what you want to do. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. And now the works of the flesh are evident. And then it goes on to saying things like sexual impurity, drunkenness, and all that stuff. But it's so real. Like that's like I read that and I kind of like woke up like, am I walking with the Spirit or am I gratifying the desires of the flesh? And that's when I was like, I got to change my ways.
Okay.
You know.
So that it says gratifying the desires of the flesh. And then you tell me if this is what you think, kind of how you felt, because I definitely went through this, is when I was constantly gratifying the desires of the flesh, I was slowly I don't know if I want to say killing, but suppressing my desires for the Spirit. Because the longer and longer you go without the Spirit and you're seeking the flesh, I think it's harder to snap out of it and to kind of realize something's wrong until you hit that end point where everything kind of bursts open.
That's so true.
There's like a feeling of despair, I'd say.
It is. Yeah. It's like you're slowly killing yourself.
Yeah, you're right, because you are. You're slowly killing yourself. You literally
are, yeah.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's so facts. Yeah, for sure. And that's when I read that, and I was like, that's when I felt I need to change.
When was this? After freshman?
This was like, I think halfway through sophomore year.
Okay.
So yeah.
So then walk me through sophomore year. After freshman year, you were kind of, you said dealing with popularity and just trying to fit in.
Just trying to fit in.
Everybody does when they're a freshman, right?
Sophomore year, I feel like I made my presence, and I was just really like growing with this friend group and like leaving my mark, and I felt good. I felt like I didn't have to worry about popularity as much.
When was this?
Because I had it. This is more going into
what friend group are you talking
sophomore
about?
year. This is my football friends and my like school friends and stuff like that. And so that's when like things, all the alcohol and parties started to come in, was halfway through sophomore year. And that was rough. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And so after that, I remember like probably winter is when things started to get bad of sophomore year, and it was just like party central, you know. And I was like, I can't keep doing this anymore. And that's when that verse started to come in, and I'm like, I can't be like this two-faced person that shows up to church and then doesn't act like it outside of it. And I want my life to show God. And like when people see me at these events, like that's not showing who God is. Yeah. And that's not glorifying at all. So then that's when I realized, like, I went home after that night. It was just a bad night, and I just saw like brokenness in this one party, and people were drinking, and it was just like it wasn't who I wanted to be surrounded by anymore, you know?
Did you kind of feel like you were just wasting your life?
Yeah, I did.
That's the feeling I felt a lot when I was like sophomore. If I was in a place that I knew I shouldn't be, I get home and I'm like, why was I doing that?
Yeah.
Kind of felt like I was wasting my life. Just there was no real purpose in what I was doing. I was just there for fun.
That's it. It's
and it
purpose.
wasn't even fun.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's yeah. You feel like you have nothing. Like, why did I do that? I just wasted that whole entire.
You could have done so much more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when it kind of sunk. And that night, I just couldn't fall asleep. And I was like, man, why, God? Why am I doing this? And it was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I can be living more for you. And that's when I just was like, I was sobbing, and I'm like, God, I need friends. I need good friends that can help lead me towards you. And then I remember going to sleep that night and waking up, and the next day was 707.
What is 707?
707 is our youth group at Milford, for those of you who don't know. I woke up and I went there later in the evening, and my friend Josh, who I didn't know at the time, was there. And I remember walking in, and I was going to go over to the same group of kids that I usually hung out with. And Josh came up, and he's like, hey, you're Jack Stine, right? I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, can I hang out with you today? And I was like, yeah, sure. And it didn't really sink into me at the time, but I realized, like, that was God sending a friend my way. Yeah. And that was an answer to prayer for me. And I didn't even, like, realize it. And it's so cool now, like, after I've seen everything, like, go that way, start leaning more towards that, is that he provided so much for me, and I didn't even realize. And it's cool to see now, like, Josh is now one of my best friends, and, like, we hang out all the time, and it's like, thank you, God, you know? Yeah.
And then how quickly did you get immersed into your current friend group, like,
yeah,
of the youth group?
Yeah, so after that one night, which I'd say is like the turning point, the flipping point. I started hanging out with Josh, and he introduced me to Hannah and Emily and all these guys. And so I started talking to them, and they're like, "Hey, would you like to come out, hang out at Hannah's house this weekend?" And I was like, "You know what? Sure. Like, why not? Like, I'll do it." And I remember feeling like so good after that, because I was just so sick and tired of what was going on.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could use a break. And so we went over to Hannah's that weekend, and I remember doing a devotional like as soon as we got there. And I'm like, man, this is different. Like, this is so cool that like this friend group can be open with their faith, and like they love Jesus so much that they prioritize him over like their hangout. You know what I'm saying? And we like just had a great time at our house. And I remember coming home and telling my mom, like, I found these people.
Yeah.
And like I was like, this is it. Like, this is something that's like worth it. And like I felt like polar opposites of what I had earlier in the week.
It's awesome.
So it was really cool to see.
Yeah, that's cool. It's definitely different when you can be a part of a friend group that lets Jesus into when they're hanging out.
Yeah.
It's not like a separate time from church. It's like all one, which is what the Bible calls us to do.
Mm-hmm.
So then after that night you were talking about, what do you think specifically in your behavior kind of changed?
Like, compared to
Like the day before, like did you notice a difference in how you were acting
like between the two hangouts?
between
Or,
the
like-
night of the party and then after?
Oh, like after that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel like I was just like so broken, and then like after that I felt loved. And that, like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like it was like God's comforting, like, I got you. Like I felt so broken that night, and then after that, like, he's like, God just comforted me, and it was cool to see. And yeah, it's like looking back at it now, like with all God's laid out for me so far, and like how he's changed how I think of others and everything else, like it's beautiful to see.
I think that's kind of a blessing that you can kind of recognize that now.
Yeah.
Like you look back probably, a year later, and you can just kind of see how it all, each decision and each event that happened kind of formed you as a person now.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that was last year.
Last year, yep.
And then give me an update. This last year, how's it been going in your walk with God?
For sure. So now, after that, we just continually started to hang out all through the spring and into the summer, and I really could feel myself like changed. And like every time
How'd you change?
every time we like hung out, I felt like God's love, and God's like he cared for me, and I felt like I grew deeper in his word and in like sharing things, holding each other accountable with other people, and it was cool. Like, and I feel like I didn't care about worldly things as much as I did before, like seeking popularity, and just like even like the way I dressed and the way I like cared about how I looked, and all that didn't matter because I knew I was a child of God, and I knew that my friends had the same view of like God cares for everyone. You know what I'm saying? And it was really cool to see, and it still is. And so like that really, I started reading my Bible more that summer, and the spring, and I started doing plans with the other guys, and it just renewed my faith. And that's when I started to step out and like seeing the works that God like gave me, I want to give others and seek others, and show them there's a better way.
Okay.
And that's when I started all the Bible studies and like started to get involved with those, and then I started up FCA as well.
Okay, that's interesting. So your kind of not beginning of your walk with God, but your true walk with God.
Yeah.
After that, how was bringing that back to public school? How was that? How difficult was it? Because there's a difference between being a new person acting like that,
Yeah.
and people knowing you. Like probably a lot of people knew you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you were one person, and then maybe like a month later, you're kind of slowly changing. There's a whole 360,
Yeah.
or I'd say 180.
180. Yeah,
360
yeah, yeah.
kind of the same way.
Yeah.
But there's a whole 180, and now you're a totally different person around those same people. So how was that?
Yeah. Man, it was hard, because everyone like that knows you is like,
They expect you to act a certain way.
yes, exactly.
And it's harder. First impressions are a thing.
They are, for sure. School wise, with that, my friend group before was like, Jack, where you been? Like, what's going on, man? Like, why aren't you hanging out with us anymore? And that was really difficult for me. And be like, hey, I've got some other friends that I found at church, and you know, like, it's like I want to hang out with them more often, and it's not that I don't love you guys, but I don't approve of all of your actions sometimes.
So did you actually? Is that what you said?
I ended up talking to them, and yeah, I was like, I still am constantly inviting them to youth group just to like keep showing them what it's all about. But that was really hard for me. Is like, I'm still gonna be friends with you guys, but you gotta know I'm not gonna hang out with you with all these parties, because I love you, but I don't approve of what you're doing and how you're going about things. And every chance I get, I want to show you the love of Christ, and that there's a better way. But I also, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right?
Yep.
So there's other things like, hey, if you want to keep doing this, I'll show you the better way, but that doesn't mean you have to jump on the wagon with it, you know? And so it still is very difficult for that. But yeah. Like,
It is pretty new. Like,
it is.
Probably this school year, right?
Yeah, it is. It still is. It's still a work in progress. But it's very difficult.
Have you seen a change in anybody that you have been around in public school?
This JT.
Yeah.
My man got baptized.
Oh yeah, tell that story.
Yeah. If you want to know more about JT, for sure, go talk to him. If you're in Milford. But man, this kid, I played football with him, my whole high school career. And this kid is awesome, but he got baptized this year at Detroit, and he was like debating on doing it. And he had like this idea of what he wanted to say, but he didn't exactly know. And he was unsure if he wanted to do it. And he's like, God, please, like, let me know if you want me to get baptized and share my story. And our youth pastor actually, like, just after he got done praying, came up to him. He's like, what you thinking about getting baptized? And he's like, I'm doing it.
That's
I'm
awesome.
doing it, you know? And it's so cool to, like, see that. Like, he's a kid that has genuinely changed because of the love of Christ. And, like he even told me, like, seeing, like, what, like, we've done has changed, like, how he loves Christ. So it's really cool to see. But I'm sure there's countless others who have, like, seen it and like, man, something's different with Jack, you know? And, like, why is he so smiley? Or, like, you know, like, why is he saying hi to me all the time? It's like, I want them to see that and be like, something's different in that kid. And, like, be like, that's got to be God.
Yeah.
That's got to be God. So, yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so for the next, you got one more year left, right?
Yep.
Going to your senior year.
Mm-hmm.
What are your goals or aspirations as far as, we'll just stick to the public school.
Yeah.
Like, and keeping that devotion going. So what are you hoping to do next year?
Man, I'm really hoping to just, especially this year, is just grow our numbers in our Bible study. And it's just before school. every Thursday morning. But like just to build that community in the high school, and I've seen it as it's gone on. But it would be so cool to just show like who Jesus is, why he loves you, why we all care so much about what he's done for us. And man, just to like see someone, and like it's kind of like what we said, like if you can infect kids with God and you can see that in them, because you can tell, and then just to show it to the school would be so cool. So that's like just growing the Bible study, getting more people to learn about who God is, and that's my goal for senior year for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Awesome, exciting.
Yeah.
And then right now, like even like recently this school year, what was something you were kind of struggling with? And is it different? Is it hard? I'm homeschooled, so I don't necessarily go to an environment like that often. Is that still a challenge for you stepping into that world? And then what is something you're struggling with right now?
Yeah, something that I can get in a bad habit of is just struggling is even like cussing and stuff like that. And that's such a prevalent thing in high school, and especially when you do a sport.
That is one of I would say one of the main things that who you're around dictates it. Because if you're around it for maybe a week straight, it's like it starts being okay. That's just what's happening, and that's a tough thing to like. Even if you're very cautious about not doing it, if you're around the wrong people, it's gonna happen at some point, depending on who you are. You can like, I've tried really hard, especially this last year, just don't swear at all. I'm not gonna speak like that. You're always sending a message about who you are and who God is. So no matter where you are, you have to really watch your tongue. But that's hard depending on who you're around.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you could be great for 6 months, and then one night you're just handling people, and then boom.
Yep.
You're just a different person.
Yep. And then other people see that, and they're like,
wait, what happened?
What happened to this guy? You know? Yeah. No, that's for sure. That's probably one of my biggest struggles, especially like being around football is like very prevalent. Like your coaches are swearing at you. Everyone's going off, and even like in a common conversation, it will be dropped about like 10 times at least, you know? And so, like you said, like who you are surrounded by is what you become. And it's a really hard, and that's like, especially as football season's ramping up during the summer, I want to stay a person who watches my tongue, because the tongue can stab like a dagger and can just hurt others. And like if I'm not going to do it at church, why would I do it at all? And like if other people, that's my biggest thing too, is I want to show others Christ through my actions, not just what I say.
Okay.
And because sometimes actions speak louder than words.
I'd say most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah. And so if I can start with something like that, where like when everyone around me is swearing, if I can not, that could be like, hey, why does he not swear? You know, and then I could like use it to share my faith and be like, I'm a Christian. And then I'm sure there's a bunch of other Christians out there that just don't profess their faith, and that could be a starting point, you know. But that's my biggest goal this year, is to watch what I say, especially with cussing, and make sure like my mouth stays holy, you know. Yeah.
There's been 2 instances for me in the past month that, because of me not swearing, I've been able to have opportunities to talk to people about my faith.
Okay.
One was that I went to a cruise, and you know, I don't know if anybody's ever been on a cruise, but it's not the most holy place.
Yeah.
So I wasn't swearing, I wasn't going into any bad situations, and we were able to start. There was like 10 people. We started a Bible study on a cruise. Which is like, it was awesome. I got to share my faith with a couple people, and I know for a fact that a couple people they are Christians, but they had been kind of lulling in their walk with God. They had texted me after the cruise, and they said, I'm reading my Bible every day, and now I feel a lot closer to Jesus. And that was a great feeling for me. So that was one instance where my language spurred those conversations. And then I was just at a basketball camp 2 weeks ago, and some kid asked, so do you just not cuss or anything? And I was like, what? He's like, so you just don't swear? I was like, yeah, I just, the Bible says to watch your tongue, and I always choose to exemplify God. And then he's like, so you're a Christian? And we just had it wasn't a crazy conversation, but I was able to share my faith very quickly. So it's very interesting how short conversations and your behaviors and actions can create conversation.
That's so cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Just being someone who stands out and, you have a light about you, it can spur on those things. And it's so cool to see. In the most likely, areas, like a cruise.
Anywhere,
That's crazy.
Awesome.
But, it's so cool. Being a light anywhere, people can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such a neat thing to have.
Something you do a good job of that I want to get better at is you say hi to everybody.
Yes.
You're very good at that. If you see anybody, you always be like, hey, what's up? You always make time.
Yeah.
So that's something you're very good at.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. I originally started that, right when I got in our good friend group with our church. And I was like, you know how I talked about this, but I was so hooked up in being popular and who to say hi to and who not to, and keep it very conserved and tight. But I realized God loves everybody and God made everybody, and why would I not say hi to a person?
Yeah.
That's dissing on God, And so I always want to make someone feel welcome and show God's love to others, and that's why I started doing it. And we were in leadership, actually, which is a class I take at Milford, and I was I didn't even think anything of it. I just started getting the habit of saying hi to people in the hallways, and I had about 10 people come up to me and say, thank you for saying hi to me this year, because that meant so much and you don't even know it. And I didn't even think anything of it, but God used that small little thing to move in big ways. Mm-hmm. And that was so cool to me. God, if just me saying hi to someone during a day can make their day and make them feel so much better, what else can I do for you? You know what I'm saying? What else can I do to grow your kingdom and shine my light? So people want to be recognized,
whether it's by someone they know or someone they don't. And if it's someone they don't, you can often shine God's light through recognizing them.
For sure.
Because some people, it's sad, but some people, I was talking to some guy in the gym the other day. He's a Catholic. He's a Catholic. He doesn't go to church, but he's a Catholic because his dad was a Catholic.
Okay.
And he doesn't know much about the Catholic faith. He says he's a Catholic, so I invited him to Oak Point. But he was telling me he just never really felt a connection with God. And I made it my mission just trying to keep talking to him and keep getting to know him and make him feel a connection with me that hopefully will lead to a connection with God. Because if you, again, surround yourself with people, but if I can surround myself around him and just make him feel loved and make him feel someone's excited to see him, I think that can change someone's perspective on life and just make them a lot more excited and happy to live for God and for others.
For sure. Yeah. That's so legit. Yeah.
All right. Well, I told you before, I didn't give you much time to think, but we're ending every episode with a hot topic. We'll just talk for 5 minutes about it. So you have 30 seconds to come up with something you want to talk about.
All right.
Don't make it too controversial. Unless you're feeling a little bit icy today.
I'm feeling a little bit icy.
A little edgy.
Want to go with LGBTQ?
Sure, man. What about it?
So I feel like it's very prevalent in our society.
Yeah, let me ask you. So I've definitely seen tons of stuff about it, but as far as public school, how ingrained is it in the culture?
It's crazy. It's a lot. People at the end of June, before we go out, people wear gay pride flags around on their backs and
students.
Yes, and they made an equality club, and they do a lot but it's very prevalent in a high school environment for sure.
What percentage would you say of people your age, like students, are actually like not even just participating in the actual behaviors, but supporting it actively?
I'd say a good 30%
Really?
of the school is somehow either involved in it, supports it, or is confirming with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sad to see, but it's a big portion of like the school.
How have you been talking to those people? Have you been able to?
Yeah, so I actually I've had a couple conversations with them before, and again, it's what I said was like, it's everyone struggles with a certain sin.
Yeah.
And like, for instance, like mine can be selfishness. I can get selfish. Someone else could be like temptation or like anger. And those people struggle with being like very attracted to the same gender. And so basically, people who don't agree with them, like the LGBTQ, are very, like they like to attack. And so I decided to come at it with a different angle of more like I care for you and I love you because you're a child of God, right?
Yeah.
But also I don't agree with what you're standing for.
Mm-hmm.
And
how did you go about saying that? Did you say those words, or was it more?
So basically, I went up to, they had a little LGBTQ stand. For, it was like club day, so the freshmen came in to see like what the clubs were all about, and they were handing out gay pride flags. And so I was at the FCA stand and our Bible like club stand. And so I went over with a little sticker and an FCA bracelet, because if you're in the marching band, you can join FCA because it's like a club. And so I just walked over and I said, "Hey, I'm Jack Stine. I go to Oak Point Church," and I was like, "I want to learn more about your club." And then she was like, "You're not gonna hate on me for this? Like, don't you go to church?" I'm like, "Yes, I don't agree with your decisions and actions, but I still care for you as a person." And that like really opened her up, and she was like, "Okay." So she started talking to me about her club, and I said like, "That's really interesting." And I told my perspective on like what, as a church, like, hey, like I don't believe in what like you believe in with homosexuality.
Did you say why?
Yes, I did.
Why?
I said because the church is like a relationship with a man and a woman. Oh shoot. And God created man and woman to be with each other. And the church represents that, with the church as the female and God as the groom, and together it represents like a marital relationship. And so going with homosexuality is going against our whole belief. And so I explained that, and then she's like, "I used to go to church, and now I don't anymore." And I was like, why don't you? And she goes, "Because of the people that were there." And like that goes back again to like, I want to represent what God is, and like seeing that is like, I want to make sure like I'm representing God, you know. And so that brief little conversation, she ended up like checking out the Bible study, and I thought that was really cool, and taking a different angle on it, showing her love, but also not agreeing with what she stands for. Yeah. She respected the church, you know what I'm saying, in our little Bible study. So I thought it was cool.
That's definitely the right approach, I would say. I think Christians have a tendency to dismiss the fact that they're struggling with a sin. They're not just deciding
Yeah.
Majority. They're not deciding to just be attracted to the same sex. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
And they're struggling with that. And it's a sexual sin, which is different than others because it's tied with the soul. And that's a real struggle. Because when you're sinning on that spiritual level every day, when that's your identity, that's hard to overcome.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times Christians just don't show empathy or compassion to them, which is what we're called to do exactly,
Yep.
like verbatim. We're called to love like Jesus. And that is, I mean, as you said, you had a good conversation with someone and they were able to take a look at it and you planted the seed for the Holy Spirit to do the work.
Yep.
Yeah. It's also interesting just because, like as I said, it's a sexual sin.
It is.
And that's tied with the soul. And something I always thought was interesting about that particular sin is it's different from cussing or different from, like, there's a different, that's why you're supposed to wait for marriage. There's a different, sexual sin is interwoven with your soul and with your relationship with Jesus. And constantly living in that sin is very difficult. And that's why I think that's a very dangerous sin, more so than others, is because you're constantly living in it. Even just, like, even cussing, like, if you're constantly living in that culture, like, you're constantly going to parties, if you're constantly doing that, it's less likely that you get out.
Yeah.
It becomes more, you become censored to it.
Numb almost, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's something I've noticed also with all the pride things going on in America, I've myself have become censored to it.
Yeah.
Like, I see the rainbow. I've really worked on this. Why when I see the rainbow do I think about LGBTQ?
Yep.
Why do I not think about God's promise?
Exactly.
Like, that's a problem.
It is.
And you become slowly censored to it. And you're, like, even me, I'm becoming changed in my view to it. So.
Yeah. It's hard. Like you said, like, it's so prevalent in the culture that, but God, we got to restore it for God. Like, restore the rainbow.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've heard that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's a bummer to see, but we also have to show God's love even when it's so hard. It's so hard.
Even when you're being attacked.
Yes.
Like, in that circumstance, I don't think you were necessarily being
I wasn't really attacked. Yes.
But there's times when they're coming right at you, and you have to be the mature voice. You have to be.
Yep.
You have to be loving no matter what.
Gotta show God. Yep. For sure. Yep. But yeah, that's. Yeah. Sometimes I want to be in a situation like that.
Yeah.
But other times I'm like, man, I could explode. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Very difficult. But that's like. I like, you got to just clear your mind, like, send up an arrow prayer to God and be like, I need help. Like, get me through this situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, help me not explode. And yeah, just let it go.
All right. Awesome. We're going to wrap up. Thanks to Samuel Hansen. He's behind the camera. You guys can't see him, but
yeah.
Here, pop on in here, buddy.
Yeah.
Say what's up.
What up, everybody?
That's Sam. All right. Well, we close out. I'll just have you pray us out.
Yeah.
And then we'll end the pod.
For sure. Dear Jesus, thank you for this awesome podcast that we could get on. I just pray that it'll just benefit all these ears to hear, and that you will send people out and be vessels for you, and that hear this message and that will want to seek the Lord no matter what problems they're going through. I just pray that you will feel your love, and that we can just be with you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.